you know, insects are good for that.
Sure.
My father married a pure Cherokee. My mother's people were ashamed of me. The Indians said I was white by law. The white man always called me Indian squaw. Half-breed, that's all I ever heard. Half-breed, how I learned to hate the word. Half-breed, she's no good, they won. Both sides were against me since the day I was born. We never settled, moved from town to town. When you're not welcome, you don't hang around. The other children used to laugh at me. Give her a feather, she's a Cherokee. Half-breed, that's all I ever heard. Half-breed, how I learned to hate the word. Half-breed, she's no good, they won. Both sides were against me since the day I was born. We weren't accepted and I felt the shame. 19, I let them tell me who's to blame. My life since then has been from man to man, but I can't run away from who I am. Half-breed, it's all I ever heard. Half-breed, how I learned to hate the word. Half-breed, she's no good, they won. Both sides were against me since the day I was born.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of It Might Get Personal. Our guest today is Andrew the Slow Poisoner, who gave us Half-Breed by Cher. And tell us why, Andrew, why that song?
Well, it sort of started out as a joke, my playing that song. Because I thought of it as being a very kitschy 70s number. And I was looking to play something like that because Cher had a number of these sort of like kind of spooky-ish story songs around that time. There was Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. That's the best known. There's a really good one called Dark Lady, which is about, it tells a little story about like a fortune teller and a murder, and it's not as well known.
I think I remember that.
And I think I really wanted to cover that, but I found that it was just too complicated, and also the record is so great that my own rendition of it I couldn't add anything to it. And for some reason I stumbled upon Half-Breed, and I found like, oh, this is not that hard to play. Because I'm actually not that good a musician, so like if it can work within my limitations, like it's chords that I can easily play, that's always a boost. I mean, doing a cover song at all, I've thought about this sometimes, because I write a lot of my own songs, and I record them, and on occasion I record other people's songs. And I was finding for a while that I would pick a song that I think would be really fun to play live, and then inevitably I would discover that someone else that was more famous than I was doing it as well. And it really made me angry, because it's like I would pick something that hadn't been played too much, and then someone else was doing it. And it got me thinking about the reasons to cover a song. And it seemed to me that there are probably two good reasons. One is if you can do something with it that hasn't been done before.
Right.
so that you're, bringing your own spin on it, or if it's a song that really has been forgotten and isn't too familiar, then you're sort of giving it a second life. But this didn't really fit either of those categories, thinking about it, because it's a fairly well-known song, at least to people of a certain generation. And I'm not sure that I've in any way improved or, on Cher's rendition of it. She didn't write the song. Someone else wrote it for her.
Right.
But I found as I played it, it became less of a joke. And I started paying more attention to the lyrics, and they actually started affecting me rather deeply. Because it tells the protagonist is a product of an interracial marriage. My father married a pure Cherokee, and then she talks about how neither side really welcomes her. The Native Americans or the white man, and how it's just a problem growing up, which makes it particularly affecting that it's sort of like through the eyes of a child, that you're born into this situation where there's already the odds are stacked against you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the way it ends with this air of like doomed hopelessness, that like she's become kind of a floozy, and she's already left home and just going from guy to guy and everything. And I found it particularly affecting, and now when I play the song, it actually moves me emotionally, which a lot of my own music doesn't really move, because I pretty much am just there to entertain for the most part, and I try to like get a vibe across with the music I make, but it doesn't necessarily have like a social, meaning the way that this one does. So I got to really respect it, and I guess that's why I figured it was appropriate to play here and worth talking about. And it's weird how something can go from being a joke to being something that you take very seriously,
And that's so. I think that's a really good example. I'm trying to think of another cover off the top of my head that started out as sort of a joke and somebody turned into a really great song. But just in general, the way that pop music songs that really are written basically just not as fluff, but also they're not intended to be statements necessarily.
Right.
Can take on that kind of meaning for somebody.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that sometimes by singing a song, it gets you much more into the head of the character and the lyrics. I mean, I guess that's sort of an obvious thing, but it hadn't really occurred to me that like hearing it on the radio, I just thought it was sort of a cute song. But when I had to actually sing it, I guess because it is a first-person song, and it really, if you're singing it with meaning, it really takes you on a journey. Because for one thing, it's sung from the point of view of a woman, and I didn't change. It would have been a bastardization to change the lyrical gender. So I really I'm in that perspective, and it's a terrible place to be. You know what I mean? Just this victimized child and this lost young adult. But by singing it, it really got me a much more serious awareness of the subject. But I also enjoy playing it because people do respond to it just from that sort of 70s vague nostalgia, standpoint. That it's like, oh, this is comfort food, for a certain generation.
Right, there's that, and it's just it's a fun song to listen to.
Yeah,
I mean, it has the necessary elements of a good pop song.
Right.
It's got the nice chorus and
yeah. It's interesting though. You thinking about other songs that have made this kind of transformation. Like I've noticed when I perform, there's almost a trend of people playing songs by the Misfits in a folk style. I don't know if you're familiar with the Misfits, but they're kind of like a horror punk, sort of violent, but they're actually well-written songs, which I think is why some people that are acoustic performers will play an acoustic rendition of the song. And suddenly it's got a kind of sadness to it that you won't hear when it's almost a more like metal rendition. So, and that I think is not, it's a bit of a trend, people doing sort of like folky, sensitive versions of stuff that have been more bombastic or, I've heard some techno pop 80s songs that are now done in a folk style. So it brings out another quality. That's another neat thing about doing a cover tune. If you change the instrumentation like that, or you change it from a female singing to a male, it does give you another perspective on the music and the lyrics.
Puts it in a different light.
Yeah.
So you said that you both perform other covers and write your own stuff when you're out in the world performing.
Yeah, mostly originals.
Yeah,
but I've done various covers.
Yeah, and does it do when you're writing your own songs? Do you feel like you're accessing other songs that you've learned? Are you building on songs, or do you try not to think about other songs when you're writing your own?
Well, I usually won't be thinking of specific songs, but sometimes I will attempt songwriting in the vein of something that I'm familiar with. Like, I was listening to a lot of instrumental music that had very complicated guitar parts, stuff like classical gas or some surf music. And I thought, I should at least write one song where my guitar playing is challenging and good. And so I set out to write a song that called Spastic Maggot that had more complicated guitar flourishes. And I am actually planning to write a song very different from Half Breed, but that also has a kind of storytelling aspect within the song of a kind of narrative arc. 'Cause it was more common in the 70s, I think. There were a lot of these story songs.
Yeah.
Like, there's this one really creepy one about a woman dropping something off a bridge, and it's never quite explained what it is she's dropping off a bridge. So it's kind of funky now, but it's like, I saw someone dropping something off the Tallahassee Bridge or something like that. Does that sound vaguely familiar?
Yes, it does. And
yeah.
I have
it's like
a friend
the
who's
Ballad
gonna...
of Billy Joe, maybe, or something like that.
Ode to Billy Joe?
Ode to Billy Joe. It might be that.
I'm going to get some angry emails for not knowing this one.
Yeah, there are a bunch of those, and like the lights went out in Georgia is another one. And then Glenn Campbell had a bunch, like Wichita Lineman.
Yeah, it was sort of their
Galveston.
Like the country crossover stuff.
Yeah,
sort of introduced
kind of
that
middle of the
storytelling.
road. Yeah. Oh, okay, right. I guess country music. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is a tradition here because like country ballads would often, they'd tell the story of some real tragedy or someone's plight. Or folk music would talk about some miner that got.
And so in the 70s,
yes,
Glenn Campbell being a really good example, started having crossover hits from country into pop, and there was sort of the band, people, introducing elements of country into rock.
Absolutely, and their songs are kind of like The Weight and that one about the Civil War.
Yep. Yeah,
so I'm gonna try that, but I'm going for a very different direction. My song is gonna be Hot Rod Worm. It's gonna be about a worm driving a hot rod, and this trucker gets into this altercation with this hot rod driving worm, and then there's gonna be they're gonna drag race, and then they're gonna crash, but then the worm is gonna split in two, and then he's got two cars going. I haven't worked out all the details yet,
sure.
So in that way it is influenced by something I'm familiar with, but I'm taking a direction that I think will be completely unrecognizable.
Sure. So that's two original songs that you've mentioned with invertebrates as the protagonist.
Yeah, I do a lot of insect music, animal songs. I sing about chickens.
So tell me about your performing name, The Slow Poisoner.
Well, I got the name from a book. The book was written in 1854 by Dr. Charles Mackay. It's called A Memoir of Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it was different chapters on different cases of mass hysteria, like tulipomania. And remember what the other examples were, maybe haunted houses or something.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them was about slow poisoning. It was called The Slow Poisoners, was the name of the chapter. And it was about sort of an outbreak of murder in the 1700s. Mostly French wives doing away with their husbands, a little bit of arsenic in his, tea on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was kind of a crazy name for a band, and I was planning to get a band together, so I did, and we were the Slow Poisoners. And I had sort of started to personally represent for me that that I was going to slowly poison like the fabric of society by, steadily putting out this weird music and performing in public, but so under the radar that would just be like eventually the cumulative deadly effect of my
Right.
my arts would be felt. So that's what sort of the personal significance it took on for me. But it was basically from a book, and what happened was I started off with a band. I led a band called the Slow Poisoners for about 10 years, and it started out as a 5-piece with 2 cellos. It was terrible. And, but people kept leaving, or I would fire them, and I wouldn't replace them, so it kept getting smaller. And it was more manageable as it went on, because it's really hard working with people doing things,
Yeah.
And eventually it got down to a duo, and that was good, but I felt like I should really just go all the way with this, and so I kicked out the last remaining member, and then it was convenient that the album I had at the time, The Slow Poisoners, it was like white letters on a black background. I was able to just X out the S, like just black it out with a Sharpie, and then voila, The Slow Poisoner. So I just decided to just keep on as The Slow Poisoner.
Okay.
And also, so I wouldn't have to not that I was too well known, but I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
And I already had like the photos printed, so I just scratched out the S, and then The Slow Poisoner. And that was probably about 8 years ago. And I've played 300. This is probably my 338th performance.
Wow.
I think. So I average about like 40 times a year
Okay.
of doing something. Usually playing in a bar someplace, but also radio shows and things.
Do you get out of San Francisco?
Yeah, not so much as I used to. I used to get all the way to the deep south and things, but it's gotten more expensive and complicated to do that kind of thing. So now I go up to Oregon frequently, and I'll get down to Los Angeles and San Diego, and I'll get into Arizona every year. I go north and south. I haven't really gone east for a few years, but so I try to spread that poison around, as much
Slowly.
as much as I can. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for coming in and
bet.
sharing the song. It was great.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of It Might Get Personal. Our guest today was Andrew, the Slow Poisoner. Are you playing anytime in the next couple of months?
Yeah, let's see. This is early November. I'll be playing in December in Chico at a pizza parlor. And I'll be playing here as well. I have a website, theslowpoisoner.com, if people want to.
And we'll
see
have
more.
a link to that on the website. Great.
Cool.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
See you next time.